Did you notice anything when I came up here? I didn't come up here with my Bible. John and Abby's with us, and I've dubbed him LJ. That's Little John. I think I confused John by saying that earlier. But I'm super glad they're here this morning. I'm really looking forward to what he's going to share about going on in the mission field in Thailand. And I'm really, really looking forward to this. And this is an awesome just think about this for a minute. And stuff like this just kind of overwhelms me at times. Eternal things happen constantly around us. In a day, things we deal with, we're constantly, and we lose sight of that fact. I want to encourage us to not only think about what's happening here around us all the time, but also what's happening in Thailand, what's happening in Guam, what's happening everywhere, Jamaica, and all these places, man. Just as eternal things are happening here, eternal things are happening there. He's not the God of the United States of America only. He's the God of this whole world. And so we're just, and we've been reminded over and over and over, he's ruling and reigning the entire world right now. And so, same authority he has here, he has everywhere else. And it's really encouraging to me to see what's happening, that what God is doing in other places, and get to hear about it. And it's just really encouraging. So I hope and pray today you'll not only be encouraged by the words that John will speak, but I also pray that God will use it to maybe ignite a fire that wasn't there, or if it was there, to fan the flames. And so I pray that we will listen with ears to hear what our King is doing in this world. So John, come on. I'm really looking forward to this, brother. Father, we do thank you for John, Abby, and Lord, just being able to have a child and also just being on the field. And Lord, there's many challenges, and I pray that you supply all their needs, whatever it be, from one end of the spectrum to the other. But Lord, most of all, I pray that we would absolutely commit to pray for them as they're there, because I know that there's forces here working against us. The enemy has his minions. And they're great as the travail, but you are ruling and reigning right now. You are King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and you will prevail. You have overcome. So Lord, I just pray that we would fight another day till you call us home or till you come to get us. Either way, we'll be faithful where we are, no matter where we are. It's your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Cool. I'm used to moving around a lot, so if you can't hear me because I stepped away from the mic, just let me know. Okay. I want to start by asking a couple of questions. So we're going to make this kind of interactive. How many of you have heard what you would call something to do with Jesus or the gospel message at least one time in your life? Raise your hand. At least once. CJ, you're really not paying attention to your dad at all then. Okay. What about 2 times? Maybe twice, at least something to do with Jesus. Let's knock it up. Maybe 10 times. 100 times. 1,000. Many times. Okay? Now, how many of you, when you heard that form of something to do with Jesus or the gospel message, the very first time you heard it, you accepted Christ? What about the second time you accepted Christ? 10 times? 100 times? Maybe 100? Maybe? 1,000 times? Wow. So what is the point of these questions? It takes a while. It takes a while. Yeah, there it goes. Sweet. Okay. The verse that's kind of been the center of our ministry for the past few years comes from Psalms 34, verse 8. Taste and see that the Lord is good. A lot of what we're able to do is invite people to come and taste and see that the Lord is good. And it doesn't just happen once or twice or 10 times for someone to come to understand who Jesus is. It might take 100, it might take 1,000. But here's the big difference that we don't always quite get it. Like, you're going overseas to tell people about Jesus. How many people have come to know the Lord? Well, how many times did it take you to hear the gospel message before you came to accept Christ? It probably took a while. From the 4-year-old in Sunday school until you were 30 after being in church many a times. Many of us, even if we haven't grown up in a church or haven't ever really been in a church, because we come from a Judeo-Christian worldview, here in America, for the most part, have heard something to do with Jesus before. Not everyone, but I would say statistically, you have probably heard something to do with Jesus before. Unfortunately, that's not the case everywhere. So taste and see that the Lord is good. We'll come back to that verse. So as some of you may know, one of our big ministry opportunities is the school that I teach at. So I teach at a after-school program teaching English to Thai kids. Now, why is this important? Similar to the U.S., education is pretty unbalanced. Here it's kind of based on district where you're zoned. If you live in Bethune, you're probably not going to go as good of a school as someone who lives in a higher income area. Sorry, Paul. You're probably not. It's just reality.
I'll just say amen.
Yeah. We see this happen in Detroit, right? Grossly underfunded. And then one day I went to a concert that a friend was doing in River Bluff High School, and that thing was larger than the college I went to. For a high school, mind-blowing, right? It's similar there, except it's a little different in the sense education's not free, so it's not based on where you're zoned, it's based on what you can afford. So what that means, if you have come from a family with money, if you have a good, well-to-do family, you're probably going to go to a good school, receive good resources, be able to go to a good high school, be able to go to good university, be able to get a good job, and that cycle kind of continue for your family. You're more likely to be okay. The flip side of it, though, is if you do not come from a well-to-do family, you do not come from those who would have money, you're not going to go to a good school, you're not going to have good resources, and your family's going to stay in this little cycle of poverty, and it's very hard to break out of it. Very, very, very hard. English is a tool. It's a tool in Thailand because it's used in international business. So even with other Asian countries, it's the international language. You work with Western nations, it's the international language. Tourism industry is built around English. So it's a helpful thing to know, just like being bilingual here in the US is helpful. Because you're working with more than one demographic. In Thailand, if you know English, you're statistically able to be paid double for the same job than if you don't know English. So this means if you work at Starbucks, you're going to be paid double for that job, even though Starbucks is not like, you don't have to go get a 4-year degree to do that. But because you know English, you're going to be paid more. Also, to get into good high schools, secondary schools, to get into good universities, you got to know it, or you're not going to get in. So what that means is these families that have the resources, they can do it. They can send their kids to extracurricular resources. They'll make sure their kids know it to help their families along. Those who don't, can't have it, don't break out of poverty. So, as a means of business and a means of, therefore, ministry in the context we see it as, we provide a really high quality education at a very affordable rate for those who couldn't otherwise do it. Now, why do we do this? We don't do it for free. We do it, they do have to pay, but it's very affordable. We can't change the cycle of poverty. We can help. When we look at the life of Jesus, he not only met preaching of the word, which is extremely important. Please do not hear me say that's not important. At the same time, Jesus had deed. Along with his preaching ministry, his teaching ministry, he met the needs for the area, and it was a way of showing God's love to the community. And that's what we have the opportunity to do here. For well over 150 plus years, global workers have been coming in and out of Thailand. And that's great. And people have come to know the Lord. And please do not hear me say, I say that a lot, that I think I know more than those who have gone before me, because I don't. I acknowledge I'm 29 years old. I acknowledge I've been living there for 4 years. And I have a lot to learn. We also look at it that still less than 1% of the population are Christians. So if they've been there for 150 years, what are we doing wrong? If we're doing something wrong, what are we doing wrong? And kind of what we've gathered is people have said, yeah, I've heard it before. I heard the message of Jesus that one time. I knew this guy one time when I was in the 3rd grade who was a Christian. Therefore, I know it, I understand it. But you don't. You don't. Because it takes that exposure. It takes that exposure. We're able to meet a real legitimate need in the community by providing education. And it's really cool. We actually have many people who come to our school who would never step foot knowingly near another Christian because they're so traditionally Buddhist or so traditionally animistic. Animistic means like worship of spirits and ancestors and that sort of thing, because they don't trust Christians. But they've done their homework. They very well aware we're Christians. They very much know that we are, but they know that we really, really love their kids. And therefore, there's a lot of trust that's been built. So I do not teach Jesus in the classroom at all. We have a curriculum that's approved by the Ministry of Education, and it's produced by the Ministry of Education. So we teach English. It's what the parents pay for. And the reason we do that is we want to be honest and upfront. We don't want to be deceptive. Deceptive is not good. So sometimes people will do, and this is my personal opinion, we have this bait and switch mentality. Oh yeah, come learn English for free from me. Your kids can come learn English for free, but I'm actually going to throw in Jesus in there without your consent. It's not really appropriate, in my opinion. And we'll put it back here. Let's say that you really want your kids to learn Chinese, and there was a course down the street, free Chinese for your kids. And then all of a sudden your kids come home and they have been they're now part of the Communist Party. You would probably be a little upset that you had no knowledge that was going to happen. And you probably want to send your kids back there after that. So we want to maintain that very sensitive openness and have no deception in our speech. And Paul talks about this a lot, to not let our ministry be deceptive. And we really try to live that out in the classroom and in our school. Which one is it? I hope the batteries aren't dying. Oh, back. Whatever, I'll leave it here. Now, that doesn't mean we don't talk about Jesus. We do a lot. But we do it differently. So we have regular community events where we're able to talk about the message of Jesus and who God is and what the love of God is and what interacting with a Christian looks like. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Come and see who is the Lord. A couple years back, I want to say about 2 years ago, we were like, you know what? We want to invite people over for American Thanksgiving. Obviously, you don't celebrate Thanksgiving in Thai culture, and it's an American holiday. But to us, it's very important, and we wanted our community to celebrate with us, and we pitched it very much like that. Hey, this is a normal American thing. We really want you to come and be a part of it. We would love for you to just join and see. So we opened up our home and invited everyone to come. And we had a bunch of kids and families come in, and we celebrated Thanksgiving together. Abby worked really hard creating like a lot of the classic dishes completely from scratch because you don't have them available there. The exception of a turkey, which are beyond expensive. We had American Thanksgiving in our house. It was really cool. And then we talked about thankfulness. A concept that's not like really there. Like we have that concept in our worldview because of the Judeo-Christian world influence. It's been in our culture for centuries. But the idea of being really thankful and why are we thankful isn't there. So it's introducing those ideas that's really important. We also regularly have, we call them play dates for lack of another word. I actually don't know another way to put it. That's always what our ministry partner calls them. On weekends, we try to do stuff with the families that go to our school. So this is one from a couple months back. We went coffee shop hopping with a family, Pi Bak, Pi Bo, and their daughter Pinto. And we just spent the morning going from a coffee shop to a coffee shop. Kind of like bar hopping, but like more appropriate. And it was really cool. And you're really wired from all the coffee. But anyway, like we just spent the whole day together. And then like during that time, one of our Thai ministry partners got to share her testimony with them. Because she just started asking a lot of questions. But like why are you a Christian? Like, do you trust John and Abby? Why do you trust them? Why do you, like, because they're foreigners and they're Christian, like, do you trust them? Why do you trust them? What does it mean to be a Christian? Why are you, like, going through those questions, which are great, but to get to this point, it takes so much time. So much time. That is okay. It is completely okay. We have to point it that way. That's what it is. Would you look at that? You have to point it towards the computer. This past year, we did Christmas at our house. As you can see, it was way too hot for Santa to be fat this year, so he's got all nice and slim to be in the Thai heat. We had everyone over for Christmas, and we played goofy Christmas games, and we had a meal together. And we exchanged gifts, that's the word. We exchanged gifts. Just same thing that we would do with our friends here. Just live life. And then we were able to do a Christmas story as well, which is not the first time. We try to do a Christmas story every year. And because it is a Christian holiday, it's very much open, and understood that, you talk about Jesus on Christmas because that's what Christmas is. Now, granted, Santa Claus is mixed in with that, so, you do have to, be careful in creating that dichotomy between the two. But you can talk about it. It's open. It's a really cool story about this year. We talked about as we were having our planning meeting of what is it going to look like this year. And one of our time ministry partners was like, you know what, we really need to talk about why Jesus had to come for Christmas, because there's no idea. It doesn't make sense. So great. Back when I was in university, we did these Bible charts telling the story of creation of Christ, drawing out images. I was I already got the images. We'll just put words to them. So we appropriated some of the images to make sense in a Thai context, and I wrote a sentence or two to go with each scene, and then our Thai partner translated it over, and we put it into a nice book. Then the week before, Micah got really sick. I got bogged down with grad school. I had zero time to prepare and just neglected it. And then that morning, as I sat there, I opened up the book and realized the words that my Thai partner translated, I didn't know half of them. So I didn't know how to read them. Just because the words they were really complicated. So I was stumbling through the entire thing, and it was awful. Absolutely awful presentation of the gospel message. Kids were drooling and were looking off into space. Some kids were nice enough to help me through some of the words I couldn't say, but it was just terrible. It was so bad. And afterwards I was well, that was a complete dud. What was all that for? And about a week or so earlier, Abby had ran into a mom who used to send her kids to our school but had to stop for that year. And Abby said, hey, you should come to our Christmas party. And she was like, yeah, I'll come. Anyway, she came late, praise the Lord, and she missed the story. And as we're eating together, we're talking. She's like, oh yeah, Abby told me that you made this book telling the story about Christmas, but we're excited to hear the story. And I was like, sorry, we already did it. And she's like, oh, that's too bad. My kids we were excited to hear it. And I was like, well, I got the book. If you would like it, you can look at it. She's like, yeah, sure. Anyway, she started flipping through the book and gave it to her kid, and her kid's just digging through it. And she was like, yeah, he's been really interested in Christianity lately. Well, you guys could have the book if you like. That would be so cool, because they just really want to learn more. Out of nowhere, right? Completely out of nowhere. So all that work, even though this part was awful, that's not what it was for. Not even in the slightest. It was nothing that I did at all. But God used it to build on work that someone else had been doing. I didn't have sparked that kid's interest in Christianity. I hadn't seen him in a couple years, or at least a year. And even if he was 5 or 6. But someone else had been interacting with him and helped him come to an interest in the gospel. It's this idea of we ourselves are absolutely nothing to do with people coming to know the Lord. Nothing. And if we think we are fooling ourselves. We are one body working together to help people come to know the Lord. But guess what? It could be Paul giving a message when you're 10, and then you're 12, you go to this youth camp, and then you're 15, you go to this thing, and then you're 20, you go to a church in your university years. And then when you're 30, you go, oh, wait a minute, I'm getting it now. I'm gonna accept Jesus. But it wasn't that person when he was 30, and it wasn't Paul. It was everybody all together with Christ as the head. So when we think that it's us, it's not. We're just part of it. So are Abby and I out there trying to do the Lord's work? Yeah, we're trying. We are. But we're just an itty-bitty part, and that's okay. We have to be okay with being a little itty-bitty part and nothing else. Yep. I don't know how that happened. Can you click back on the PowerPoint? Paul? Or Abby? Go to slideshow, present from current slide. Okay, we'll just look at the slide until they can bring it back up. This is another picture from that Christmas party. It was really cool. We were able to sit and do this. Like, you may have played this game before. It's called a gift saran wrap ball. So like you take a bunch of little tiny gifts and you wrap it around in saran wrap and you pass it around like a hot potato. And then the music stops. You got to open it really quickly and try to get gifts. And anyway, just a fun little game. And here is a picture of me and my family and a lot of our students and some of our other staff members at our house on Christmas Day. And this was so cool to have this. I know before we got there, the founder of our school had put the school in place because the Lord told her to, and labored for years without seeing anything.
Is that the book?
Yep, that's the book. Did you ever do Bible for Teachers when you were in CIU? Okay. Well, I was required to do it. So that's the book. We have a copy of it at our house back in Thailand. But yeah, our Thai ministry partner, like the founder of the school, had been working really, really hard, and for years seen absolutely nothing. And then first 2 years we were there, we like tried and tried and tried, and no interest. And this year suddenly we have like 30 people come to our house to hear the Christmas story. And that's because it was the Lord's timing. And because all that work had gone before, we're able to pick up in that spot. Here's a couple pictures of just day-to-day life at our school. And like I said before, we don't teach Jesus inside the classroom, but it's these opportunities that come outside of the classroom. That being said, sometimes people do ask questions, and I don't usually shy away from questions if they get asked, even in the classroom. So I'm going to tell a couple of pretty cool stories that have happened this past year in addition to the Christmas one. We had a student in one of my classes one day, and just randomly in the middle of class said, "Teacher, how do you say Prayesu in English?" Prayesu means Jesus. How do you say Jesus in English? And I was like, "Well, Jesus." I was like, "Why do you ask?" It was just really random. And she was like, "Teacher, it's so scary." And I was like, "Oh, she must have seen a picture or a video or something to do with the crucifixion." And I was like, "Yeah, that is a scary story. Like, do you know what that story is?" Like, no. I was like, let me explain and unpack like what that story is. And I was like, about 2,000 years ago in the country of Rome, when people were bad and they needed to be punished, sometimes the police would kill them that way. They would put nails to their hands and put them on a cross so they would die. But the difference was with Jesus, he wasn't actually bad. He did that for other people. And then I actually kind of moved on, not thinking anything else of it. Another kid was like, "But teacher, I don't understand why." I was like, "Well, He did it because he really, really loves us. Like, teacher, I don't understand. I was like, let me explain it in a different way. I was like, let's say that student A did something really bad and was about to get punished, and I, teacher John, stepped in and said, no, don't punish her, punish me instead. That's exactly what Jesus did. They're like, but why? I was like, he knew there was no other way for us to come back to heaven unless he did that. There was no other way. And I look over, and Pinto, one of our other students I mentioned earlier, she was in tears, completely distraught in the corner. And then she ran out of the classroom into the lobby screaming, Teacher John is telling the story of how Jesus died, which is not necessarily something you want a kid to run out and say in a school, right? I was like, oh gosh. Like, this is the end of our school. We're going to get shut down. Asked my students, was like, you guys please be quiet. Went out there. All the parents are confused. One of our Thai staff happened to be out there. I was like, okay, you're going to help me translate this one to make sure there is no misunderstanding of what happened. So I went through and explained the exact same story again, because a student asked a question, I said this, another student asked a question, I said this. So not only did the students hear it, the entire room of parents got to hear the story again. And then the next day, we went to her parents owned a restaurant kind of close to one of the universities, like a little tiny mom and pop restaurant. And they are very traditionally Buddhist, very traditionally animistic, have clearly said before they do not want their daughter exposed to Christianity. And we went over, and I was like really worried that they were going to be very upset with us. Obviously, we understand that the gospel is offensive, and it will be. But I wanted to make sure that they knew that we weren't like trying to teach Jesus in the classroom. So I went through and was like, hey, we just want to check on your daughter. She was really she was crying. Like, we want to make sure she's okay. And we went through the same thing again. Like, we also want you to know, like, it wasn't part of the lesson plan. It's just kind of what happened. And she was like, no, I understand that. Like, sometimes our child can be sensitive. And we explained that, like, that happened a long time ago. And you know what? Whenever she's older, maybe she can start thinking about these things for herself. Maybe she can start thinking about truth for herself. You want to talk about a worldview shift from never, ever, 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 ever to maybe one day. So it's those shifts in worldview. But that's where it starts, is those shifts in worldview. Oh, I did it again. I'll tell another story. Sorry, Abby. The student you see sitting here in the chair, his name is Jedi, kind of like a Jedi Knight from Star Wars. No correlation, just similar sound. He, along with 3 other of my students, were graduating from our program, which means they were going from grade 6 to grade 7. Yep. His mom, Pinot, right here, is very afraid of Christians. Once again, wants nothing to do with the gospel. Well, they were graduating, and I felt the leading of the Holy Spirit to give them a gift before they left our program. And so I reached out to each of the 3 families and said, hey, because your kids are graduating, I, as the teacher, not as the school, want to give them a gift. And I really want to give them the Jesus Storybook Bible. If you guys have read that before, well, they have it in Thai as well. And so, I want to give them this book. And the reason I want to do it is because they've heard us talk about Christianity many times, heard me talk about Jesus before. And if they ever have any questions, I want them to have a point of reference to look to. First two parents were like, yep, that's great, like that we have good, really good relationships with, you can give that gift. Her, I was expecting like a, or a just flat out no. Anyway, she called me back and was like, yeah, you can give it to my kids. They can totally learn more about Jesus. I was like, what? Like, I was not what I was expecting her to say. But like I was telling her, like, I acknowledge you're the spiritual head of the home, not me. And therefore I respect you and your husband as the spiritual heads of the home and over your daughter. Therefore I want to make sure I ask. Always ask. But after years, and her son's been going to our school for 4 or 5 years, something like that. And anytime we ever have an event and we say, okay, we're going to do a time of prayer, or we're going to talk about this Bible story or whatever, and we always say, like, if you have to go, it's okay. We don't want people to feel obligated to have to stay. Always leaves, every time. And then suddenly that, worldview shift. But years interacting and tasting and seeing that the Lord is good, and worldview is beginning to shift. And if this is it, if this is the only role that Abby and I have to play, that's great. The Lord will will take that and do what he wants later. A couple other pictures from our just life at the school. I'm really big into STEAM education. If you guys, some of you may know what that is. So it's like learning creative thinking skills. So every Friday, like, we don't use a textbook and we do like fun, interactive lesson plans. The school is so boring for almost everyone. Like, I'm almost done with my degree, and I fall asleep all the time doing my homework, and I'm an adult. So anyway, we try to make it really fun and interactive, and people want to learn and have value in wanting to learn, and know that education, even though it's really boring, has its value in its place. And they can learn by doing this kind of stuff. They built beaver dams and they built towers, and it's silly and it's fun, but they're still practicing English and they're learning to think creatively. And parents recognize that this is like really, really helpful. And other teachers don't do this because you do kind of the bare minimum work and that's it. But as believers, we go above and beyond what we're required to do because we understand the value of it, and we want God's glory to be proclaimed, right, in what we do. So we try really hard to just go beyond for the sake of our kids.
What did you say that picture on the right was?
They're building beaver dams.
Beaver dams?
Yep, so we watched the video. So this is what I did. We watched a video on...
We're trying to tear those things up.
Yeah. But it's thinking, how do you build something like that, right?
Yeah.
So like we watched a video on beaver dams and how like beavers make them, and I said, great, now I want you to go outside, here's some materials that I already have for you. I want you to go find sticks and rocks and whatever, and you're gonna make a beaver dam. And guess what? You're gonna fail. And 4 out of the 5 group projects failed. Honestly, I was surprised the 5th one held up. But not only does it teach them that it's okay to fail, it's okay to not succeed, and we build off of our mistakes. Like, it teaches you to think, like, how do I take all these random things and create something out of it? Which, like, we have in more so in American education, but they don't have in Thai education. So it's valuable, it's important. And it helps you to think as you get older. Aha. Okay, these are my 3 students who graduated out of our program. In Thai culture, when you present a gift, especially from someone who's more senior to you, you do these pictures of like handing over the gift very formally. It's just a normal Thai thing. Anyway, so we did that after their graduation ceremony, and we're able to give the gifts to them. So each of them now have a copy of the Jesus Storybook Bible, which is really neat. A couple more pictures of just as we've interacted with people at the school. The one in the center is actually at Pinot's family's farm. If you ever want to feel like you're a big shot, go fish in a fish hatchery, and you'll feel pretty cool. I caught like 6 fish in a couple minutes. And I was like, I am the man. And then after a little bit, it dawned on me it was the fish hatchery, and I was like, nope, nope. But for those couple minutes, it was pretty cool. Christmas of 2021, I want to say Abby's family got to come visit us, and that was neat to have family just come see what we're doing. So there's a picture right there on the right from when they got to come see us. Abby had a really cool opportunity at Halloween, which is becoming a popular thing thanks to Instagram in Thailand, of creating a story of a child who was very afraid on Halloween of the ghost. Now, in Thai culture, people were very aware of the spiritual realm, and most of them are very afraid of it. And I mean, I get it. Demons are like, they're scary, and they know that they're scary, and so they have a lot of fear. But anyway, Abby created this book of this kid going through a journey of like, eventually at the end of the story, he looked up at the one who created the stars and the one who provided light, and was like, this creator can give me peace, and like was able to go back and to pray for peace. Just to kind of introduce that concept, and it was really well received. This is a picture of Abby with one of the moms from our school. She taught Abby how to make authentic pad thai, which is really neat. If you want to learn how to make authentic pad thai, Abby can teach you. So I was able to just spend time with her, and that's where it comes from. The other big thing that we do is we go to a gym, which is a part of everyday life. I'm sure some of you, maybe not all of you, go to a gym a little bit. And if like first we just started going because like we were trying to get better at our Thai, and it was like a good, safe environment to practice language. So anyway, we started going there. The people who started it, though, they are believers. There's a Thai guy and an American. And they have actually started a church through this gym. It's a CrossFit gym. And what they have done, and this is how we've modeled our ministry, along with viewing what other people have successfully done over the past 20 years in Chiang Rai, as they created a community and then lived a lot of life with everyone in that community, and regularly had events and regularly prayed with people and regularly talked about Jesus. And eventually, when the Lord said it's time, they started doing a church service every Wednesday night after one of the workouts. So you're sitting there in your sweaty gym clothes on workout benches, worshiping the Lord and studying the Word. It's really cool. It's really cool. Honestly, it's like, it feels more authentic than sometimes other churches that you go to, because it's just like, it's just raw. There's nothing, no agenda. There's nothing about it other than let's just worship the Lord and let's just enjoy each other's fellowship and love each other. And so it's really good. And this has become a huge piece of community for Abby and I. We got to know a lot of really good people there. So we're really grateful for this group. And we have a friend, her name is Mint, like a spearmint or peppermint. She got stuck in Chiang Rai because of COVID. She worked like for an airline. And anyway, obviously planes weren't flying, so she couldn't leave. And Abby really got to know her and helped spend some time discipling her during that time she was stuck. And her story is really cool. She is from Bangkok, which is like the major city in Thailand. And she heard she had a friend growing up who apparently became a Christian and his life was dramatically transformed. And she was going to be coming into Chiang Rai to visit her sister. And she wanted to see her old friend to see this transformation happen, or this transformation that happened. And she grew up as a Christian, but had never been discipled before. And when she saw her friend change, she was like, this is super interesting. I need to understand more about what happened. And she became part of the community as a result of that. Just learning more about Jesus and growing in her faith and being discipled because someone else had come to know the Lord that she knew. And so since then, she has grown a lot in her faith. She has gone back to the airline she was working for, so she's no longer in Chiang Rai. But she was able to grow a lot during the time that she was there. The guy that came to know the Lord, his name is Net, like a fishing net. He's the guy right here in the photo, not me, the other guy. Anyway, he had a cousin who goes to our gym who's not a believer, invite him to come work out. And he started coming. And this guy came in hungry, really hungry. Had a lot of questions. And came to know the Lord. And life has been dramatically changed. Sometimes it takes a long, long, long time, and sometimes the Lord does it in an instant, and when we have those moments, obviously we rejoice because it's really cool. Drastically changed who he was. He loves the Lord so much. I'm encouraged every time I talk to him because of how much he loves Jesus. Anyway, he became just a regular part of it, and eventually he got hired on at the gym as a coach. And now, he's full-time staff there and is a big part of the ministry. And he started dating a girl who goes to the gym. Her name is Dong. Now, Dong has been coming to the gym since it started, so since 2015, I believe she has been coming there. Same thing, come to all those events, heard the gospel 1,000 times. But she's well-to-do, comes from a good family, she has a good job, she doesn't need Jesus. Her life is good. And she met Nat. And then she started learning more about the Bible because Nat would bring her along to things. And then eventually a shift happened in her mindset of, it's not about what Jesus can do for me. It's not what it's for. It's how Jesus can transform me. And she came to know the Lord. And then they got married, which was really neat. It was an absolutely awesome ceremony. And their entire wedding was super gospel centered, so everybody that came heard the gospel. And 90% of the people that were there were not believers. And they all got to hear the gospel. He led her to the Lord, and he's baptizing her here, in this photo on the left, at the gym, actually. He led his mom to the Lord. He helped bring his sister to the Lord. And he got to baptize his mom and his, at the time, fiance. Super cool, right? Super cool. But it was because of all this foundation that got laid first. And the word was moving. Some of you may remember the last time we were here, we talked about this Creation to Christ media project we had been working on, of doing a full-on story, a multimedia story of discussing, creation all the way to Christ's return. And it has been done in 50 languages, I want to say, around the world so far. And we had a donor say, hey, if you want to do this in Thai, we'd be more than willing to support you on it, pay for the project. So we were like, yeah, sure, let's do that. Anyway, it took us 2 years, but the project is finally complete. So we have a full-on film. Now it's pictures with audio on top of it. So it's not like, you know how in the Jesus film, like you can have it in different languages, but Jesus' mouth moves out of sync of the audio. So it's not like that because there's not actually moving characters.
It's kind of a documentary.
Yeah, like a documentary. So anyway, it tells the whole story of creation to Christ, which is so cool. Now the project got completed in December, and our long-term goal with it is we want to see it broken up into really small videos, and we want to use it on social media. And why really small videos? Well, if you're scrolling on your phone and you're going to watch a video, if it's an hour and a half long, you're probably not going to watch it, most likely. I won't. But if it's a 2-minute video, you might watch it. And so it's like using social media as a means of trying to introduce like a little bit about Jesus. And actually Thais are the #1 use of Facebook per capita in the world. So like, everybody's on their phone anyway. Why not try to figure out how we can utilize this for the gospel? And you can actually, this is just a business way Facebook works, you can target a specific region, specific city, even a neighborhood of like, anyone within this neighborhood will get these ads. And so you can like introduce it. So for our city, we can say within this area, they can have interaction with the videos. And we want to use those videos as the means of people have further questions to point them towards pastors or other Christians who could help them along. So like, for a good example, if McDonald's was running a special for Camden, they could like run a bunch of ads only for Camden. And if you were in Columbia, you wouldn't get those ads, but if you were in Camden, you would. It's kind of how it works. And we've heard of this being done in other countries, and so we're saying, like, how can we utilize it for the work that we're doing? That's a project Abby has been heading up, and she'll be going into the social media part of it once we get back. It is not my forte in any way, shape, or form. I'm not a tech guy. I'm a talker, which is why I'm a teacher. But I'm really grateful that Abby and I are a team, and she can do that part. And then the other thing that we do is we live our lives in the community, just like we would here. So I'm a runner as like a hobby, and so like I found out how popular trail running is in Thailand, which I didn't know before, and so I just started running races. And not only is it a really cool, fun hobby, and you get to meet a lot of really cool people and see a lot of really cool places that you would never see if you weren't on foot. I get to meet the same people all the time. And I've gotten to build relationships with all these people who regularly run these races across the state and forming relationships with these guys. And it's neat. And it's using something that I already love to do. And I would be doing either way. It doesn't always have to be intentional or fancy. It can just be something that you enjoy doing, like running. I used to play airsoft a lot when I was a kid. Well, one day I stumbled upon a airsoft course in Chiang Rai, of all things. And there's a core group of people who play every Sunday afternoon. These people would never interact with Christians, but like they gladly welcome me in to go play airsoft with them. Now, granted, they destroy me most of the time, but like it's so cool, and I get to go shoot people, which gets some like frustration out. Granted, that was a joke. Please make sure if that goes out on the internet, I don't actually mean hurting anyone. I get to do something that's fun, interactive, and be with people who don't know the Lord. We have some fellow workers who work with a different people group who happen to move into our city, and so we've become good friends with them. And so this is a picture of their family here. We got to do a obstacle course race with them back in like August, I think. Anyway, they've just become really good friends for us, and we're really grateful for them. Oh gosh.
Yeah,
Apparently, yeah, okay. Whatever, I'll leave it alone. Then another, thank you. There's a fancy button on here that says escape, and apparently that's what that does. And then Abby, she is a mom. Big surprise. And she takes Micah out to playgrounds to go play, just like any kid needs to do. And she started noticing something, that there's a lot of other moms that take their kids to playgrounds too. Isn't that interesting? And a lot of these moms are actually kind of lonely. Because the way it works in Thai culture is like, if you are able to work, you do work, even as a mom, and then you leave kids with grandparents. Now, if you're in an area where you don't have grandparents there, and you have to stay home with your kids, well, you're kind of separated from your community. Like, you don't have a work community to go to, you don't have family. They're actually kind of lonely. And so Abby's been able just to spend a lot of time hanging out with moms at the playgrounds, and getting to know them. So she, there's some pictures of some of the kids that Micah gets to play with, and just kind of interactions that Abby is able to have with the moms. Even if it's just like, hey, like, let's go to this playground. Did you hear about this one that just went up? Let's do it. Let's go play together. So it's been really neat. And then our last big inroads into the community is Micah himself. He has been huge for us. Everyone loves Micah. And it's not only because he's adorable like me, it's because people really love children. At least in Thai culture, they do. It's like Micah's able to win people over. We have like some super cranky neighbors that have never wanted to interact with any other foreigners that have lived in their neighborhood. And Micah says, you know what, I'm going to go in your yard and play. And Abby and I have to go out and get him. And then like cranky old grandpa is so like smitten, that's a good word, so smitten by Micah that it just destroys all of those walls. It's really neat. So this is a picture of Micah with one of the restaurant, like there's a restaurant we go to regularly. The restaurant owner loves Micah. Micah loves her. There was another time, a couple months back, we were at a restaurant and look over and go, where did Micah go? I'm sure every parent has had that reaction of, where did my kid go? Micah was a couple tables down eating with other people. He just got up, went over, hopped in there in a chair, and just started eating. Not all, and you see, you have to go over there and go, sorry. But they're like, no, it's fine. Like, he can eat, and they're sharing their food with him. And they want to be friends. So it's just super cool. So the point of all that I say is, it's not fancy. It's not this big idea or message that we have or something that we like. We come and we want to do this. It's taste and see that the Lord is good. Come and see. Whether you're here in Camden or you're in Chiang Rai, you make yourself available for people to come interact with Christ. I mean, that requires some more intentionality in some places than it does others. And it requires a lot of intentionality and a lot of leading of the Holy Spirit of what to do, how to do it, when to do it, but sometimes it's not that at all. Sometimes it's just like God's person is there, and God will utilize you because you are there. Now, you need to be very active in it, but just let the Lord use you. Be willing to let the Lord use you. And then keep in mind, as Paul writes, it was I who planted the seed and Apollos who watered, but Christ who gave the growth. It's never going to be what you do. It's never going to be what I do. We're just a little itty-bitty part. You might plant the seed, You might kick up a rock. You might pour some water. You might throw some Miracle Grow on there. Or you might harvest the crop when that time comes. But we're all part of it. So stay encouraged. Do what you can. Let Christ's name reign supreme in what you do. And know that no matter what, Christ just wants to be glorified and honored. And he just wants you to be obedient. Never what we're going to do. It's never how many souls we see to come know the Lord. It's that we're obedient to what Christ has called us to do. Okay, I'm not sure what time you guys... Oh, here's another cute picture of Micah. Abby's making pumpkin soup in this picture. And then I think there's one more cute picture of Micah. Yep. Here's Micah playing. We have a family who lives in our neighborhood who are also Americans. And they have a daughter who's Micah's age. And so he gets to play with her a lot. And then here's Micah playing with another one of our neighbors. And Micah is like the VIP of our neighborhood. So like we live in it. When I say gated community, it doesn't mean the same thing that it does here. It just means like no through traffic in the neighborhood. And there's like a guy that like keeps people coming in and prevent through traffic. And that's like really important because the kids want to run out in the street and you don't want your kid running out in a busy area, which is why we chose to move there. Anyway, there's a security guard who rides around on his little bicycle. Anyway, like he'll pick Micah up all the time and just ride him around the neighborhood. Micah loves it so much. He feels so cool. And the guards love it too. Anyway, so that's the picture of that. So I'm not sure how much time we have left. It's 12:03, but I do want to open it up for any questions anyone might have, just to kind of wrap up our time. At the end, we did bring a special candy for you guys from Thailand. Abby has it there in the back, and we also have updated prayer cards. I think those are coconut. Is that what they are?
Those are coconut.
Yep.
Lucky we didn't bring you the stinky fruit.
Yeah, the church we were at last week, we brought stinky fruit. It's called durian, and it really does smell. It's delicious, though. But for you guys, we're like, they're from Camden. I don't think they can handle the stinky fruit. But we brought you the coconut. And we have some updated prayer cards as well, and we'll put those out back. And then if you want to get our newsletter and you don't already, talk to me or Abby, and we'll make sure you get that.
What is your greatest prayer need right now?
That's a really good question. Endurance. It's not easy. It's really, really, really tiring. And these are the cool stories that we got to share with you guys. These are the cool ones. But it's a lot of really hard days. And a lot of days of why am I here? And we're tired. I should know everyone's tired. Really tired. So just pray for endurance. Pray for strength.